All right, welcome back to this segment of 3D. We're going to be talking about 3D today, and with me is Dr. Alison Curdt, friend of the family kind of a thing here at Onform. Dr. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it. And I'm really excited for us to talk about some 3D.
I am too, but I want to give a little bit of background of just kind of who you are. A PGA Master Professional, an LPGA Master Professional, TPI certified, 35 plus years of playing golf. I'm not going to go into all the accolades of how much you've played, where you've played, majors and whatnot. Amazing. 20 plus years of coaching and teaching, and the current president of the SCPGA. When we had the opportunity to work with you, we thought this is the one. We're excited to work with Alison, and what you bring to Onform is what we're excited to talk about today, is just your knowledge. So thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic opportunity to be a part of the Onform family. And I think just when you say those years or decades, I mean, obviously I started when I was 1.5, right?
Yeah,
30
absolutely.
years. Just kidding. But it's given me an opportunity to see golf from both aspects, a pre-technology phase and a ton of great technology phase. And I think that's something that makes my generation very unique is that we've seen both sides of coaching where 3D wasn't accessible unless you paid thousands of dollars, and now it's on your phone. And the amount of technology that you choose to use in a lesson is at the coach's discretion now. Whereas 20 years ago, you didn't have a choice because it wasn't accessible and it wasn't affordable. So I'm just excited to be partnered with a great company that is helping my students play better and certainly helping my business run better.
We love that. We love that. I didn't tell you when we were talking a few minutes ago, I was like, here's what we're going to do. I didn't tell you the quote I wanted to throw out here on purpose because I want to see your reaction to this, and it's going to lead into our discussion today. So, golf is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated. It satisfies the soul and frustrates the intellect. It is at the same time rewarding and maddening, and is without a doubt the greatest game mankind has ever invented. The great Arnold Palmer. But what gets me is it is satisfies the soul and frustrates the intellect.
Mhm.
So I'm going to tee you up for this one. I'm your golfer. I'm your student, and I come, not you, I come to a teacher and I hear pelvis, rib cage, sway, slide, thrust, lift, angle of attack, shaft lean, parallel, P1, P7. And if you look at Arnold Palmer's statement, it's deceptively simple. And at the simplest form of golf, it's hit this golf ball from T1 to hole 18 in the fewest amount of times.
Mhm.
I mean, am I missing anything? Like that seems to be as easy as it is.
Yes, I think you've just totally outlined a quote that I share with a lot of my students where I say, golf is simple, people make it hard.
Yes.
And so we can choose to make it as hard as we want. We can coach it as hard as we want, sometimes using words that may not resonate with us or resonate with the student. We can certainly think about mechanics and technical that may or may not be important. But ultimately, like the concept of golf is fairly simple. You just move this ball in the least amount of strokes possible for 18 holes. And whoever can do that the best is going to score the lowest. And then
Right.
what creates the interference? It's the human. The
Mhm.
human's the one that's creating the interference. So, fantastic quote to get us started off with. All of those words, I think there's two camps out there in coaching. There's camps out there that are saying, educate up your
Mhm.
student. Let's use all of these words. I'm more of the camp of it's got to be appropriate for the human in front of me. There's going to be some students that are really thirsty for understanding pelvic thrust and rotation and torso and trunk and flexion and extension, and maybe using more like anatomical biomechanical terms. And then there may be the other student who just says, please tell me what to do so I can play
Mhm.
better and do it in the simplest way possible so that I can go have fun with my friends in 30 minutes. And
Mhm.
so I think it's very important to be student centric when we choose to use certain words and we choose to use certain movement patterns in coaching. And the coach has to be the responsible one to know when to use those types of terminologies because you can really get bogged down very quickly.
You know, it's interesting because there's even scary terms where golfers are that's what we are. We're all degenerates. We just want to be really good at this sport. And you're watching the Masters this week, and everyone's just trying to find that it factor so I can be a
Right.
little bit better. And when we hear words like machine learning, AI, 3D models, that can get a little bit technical. That can get a little bit scary. But I think something that Onform prides ourselves on is being simple. So I want to start with this question for you. When I mention the words 3D to you, what does 3D mean to you, and how do you simplify that for your students?
Certainly. I mean, from an obvious cerebral, 3D means three dimensions. I think that it's more robust than three dimensions. It's being able to take a 2D or a flat image and work with it and
Hmm.
be pliable with it and change perspectives and change angles. So for me, 3D, I'm interpreting that as being able to take a 2D image and understand um, how the body can move. I mean, we can look at things in terms of 6 degrees of freedom,
Hmm.
where now all of a sudden you've got ups and downs and thrusts and rotations, and there's some cool stuff to go in there. But simply to describe to a student is how do I take an image of you that when I put it on my iPad, it's 2D, it's flat, and how can I explain something to you conceptually, but also move the model around
Hmm.
so that you have a deeper understanding of the message I'm trying to articulate to you? And having visual representations of the body in multiple forms helps deliver my message more simply. And I would actually add on to your Onform makes things simple. Onform makes things simple and reliable
Hmm.
and precise. And that's really important in coaching is any company can come up with a 3D representation of a body, but is it really accurate? And is it precise and is it reliable time and time again?
Hmm.
And that's really important to me as a coach, and Onform certainly does that for me. And the students respect that.
Yeah. And what you just said is the words reliable, accurate. And accuracy is something that we've had this 3D model here at Onform for quite a while. And we've been very specific in rolling it out until it is ready for visualization. So we knew what we had, we've built it and we've had it for a while, and we've rolled it out maybe a couple of months ago, right? The first question that I'm getting from coaches is, well, where's the data? When am I going to see the data? I want to know what's happening in space, and I want to be able to see these things. And I tell all of the coaches, and Gear and I and Krishna, we're all of the same mindset that you get one first impression, you get one shot to earn trust. And we are very, very cautious before we roll out data and numbers to say, yep, there's 45 degrees, just trust us. So
Right.
Onform has been very, very specific in our testing. We've gone literally across the country. We've talked with a lot of biomechanists. We've tested against a lot of systems, and we know where we're plus or minus a few degrees, where we're plus or minus a lot of degrees. We're going, okay, we're not ready to go yet. There's some of other companies out there that are just saying, we're not going to, you can't test against us. You just take my word for it. And we don't want to be that. We want to be transparent. And so when you and I are about to jump into this little demo just to show some of your 3D stuff, and maybe while I finish this up, you want to pull up your screen or something like that. The one thing that I want to make sure that we're very clear on is we have the numbers, but we're very cautious before we send those numbers out to make sure that we're really close. And then we want you to test them because you may have a gear system or an AMM or a Vicon or an OptiTrack. Test it, report back. Let's grow together, right? Like that's kind of our thoughts here. And so as Dr. Allison, as you, I mean, maybe if you have a chance to pull up your screen there, let's take a dive into how you would use 3D with a student on the lesson range and kind of maybe what you would do to go through helping them understand what are they seeing, what are they looking at.
Certainly. So, there's some good pieces that you pulled up there that you have one chance to make a good first impression. And when it comes to 3D and measurements, the marketplace is competitive. So you want to do it right the first time. And that's a company that I respect, right? So I think when I'm looking at the new update to the app that just rolled out, so anyone who hasn't updated your app in the past couple of weeks, you are missing out. It's been done right, and it's helping make my coaching easier from a couple of different perspectives. But so here is from a two camera mode. So I'm now, with the help of gear, running outdoors two iPads without Wi-Fi and having a two camera system so that I can see one golf swing synced up at the same time from face on and down the line. And then I'm also able to have a 3D representation. So I've got two 2D images. I've got one face on and I've got one down the line. But let's say I'm trying to give my student a perception of rotation and how the body's rotating. So I can just do an overhead view. And the right side is represented in the blue dots, and the left side is represented in the red dots. So the student can get a deeper understanding of how their, let's say, rotation impacts depth of the golf club. So if I take a look at the arms and how they're swinging from the 3D model in the top left screen, I can see what that depth is looking like using the grid lines on the ground. And is the club getting deep enough for this player in order to eliminate an over the top move and to appreciate proper sequencing? So I like having these quick options to go down the line and face on. Using the body as a representation can certainly be helpful, but if I wanted to change an angle, I can't do that from the two cameras that I've just filmed on, but I can move this representation, this 3D representation around as much as I'd like. I also appreciate some new features that have been added. Hopefully, I'm not revealing too much with
Perfect.
some hand tracking. And I do oftentimes talk with students who are having too much curvature on the golf ball, how the hand path is moving around their body, whether it's moving more into out, out to in. And to draw the line with my Apple Pencil and to try to trace it, it's way too tedious. So to be able to quickly turn on this feature, and as you trace the green line in the top left corner, I'm able to see, you know what, on that exit, the hands aren't arcing enough left. So this is actually going to be a little bit too into out for our taste for this player, which is going to create too much curvature. And I would want to get that exit hand path to move for this player a little bit more left, down and left. And now the player has a visual representation when they view it. Now, from a psychological perspective, Nate, I don't know if you've heard this yet. What I have found as one of the biggest benefits of this 3D image is taking away the personalization of someone's body and how they view their body. So being able to kind of eliminate some different panels here and maybe just getting down to the 3D image, the person isn't commenting on their weight. They're not commenting on their outfit. And I would say a lot of times there's a hesitation in video analysis for some players. When you have a good relationship with them and they open up to you, they may see themselves for the first time on video and say, oh, I need to drop a few pounds. I don't like how my right foot jumps up like that. I don't like how I early extend, or my butt's too big, or that's a poor outfit choice. The subjectivity that has nothing to do with golf, but is the psychological aspect of how a player views themselves, is diminished when we go to the 3D representation. You don't identify gender, you don't identify body type. You are literally looking at movements. And I would consider, this is putting on the sway and slide feature. You're looking at joints, skeleton. And that has been something that I've realized in the past 2 weeks while I have rolled this out with my students. That has been a game changer. There are now times that I won't show them the physical representation of themselves if I know that it's too sensitive, that they don't like the way they look. And then we can get into the nitty gritty of this is how you play better based on this representation that you see. It takes away that subjectivity.
I love that because it sounds to me as if you're going to the doctor and the doctor is taking an x-ray. They're looking on the inside, saying an MRI, a CAT scan, or whatever it is, and they're looking on the inside. Here's what's happening. They're not saying, Allison, the reason that your foot is hurting is because you have blonde hair. You're like, what is it? It has nothing to do with that. Let's take a look on the inside, and here's what's happening. And the way that you describe that is just mind blowing, because you're right. I've looked at myself on screen. I'm like, oh my word, Nate, why did you wear those shorts today? It has nothing to do with my over the top move, which leads me
Right.
to, how have your students been able to receive this simple yet accurate 3D representation?
It's really easy to digest because there's not a lot of busyness that goes on the screen. It identifies major joints. So by looking at it, they're able to say, oh, pelvis, knee, ankle, shoulders, elbow, wrists. Pretty simple. A little bit of cervical, top of the head, call it a day. So it's clean. They're able to digest it. Having the color coding, right side blue, left side red, makes it really easy when some of these dots start to overlay each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's indicating and showing more of how the skeleton is moving as opposed to the muscles and the meat. And we've done these podcasts and interviews before, and I'm a big fan of the skeleton feature for that reason. And now we've taken away the skin and we've exposed what's the skeleton doing. And ultimately, from a coach perspective, if we can take our brain and create new motor patterns to the muscles so that the muscles move the skeleton in a better way, we are then influencing motor pattern changes. We're moving the skeleton in a better way. Students are really enjoying the visual simplicity of it, simple colors, having the joints, the freedom to move things around quite simply. They're like, oh, I'm not getting through enough. Oh, well, you know what? Let me just go down the line. And gosh, those lines pretty much align and stack on top of each other because they're not distracted by maybe their belly, or they're not distracted by their shirt hanging out right now. Um, they're receiving it quite simply as, I think, taking away a lot of congestion that comes across in golf instruction and bringing it down literally to bare bones.
Oh, removing the congestion and taking it down to bare bones. I think we're going to run with that title. That's awesome. Um, let's get a little technical. Can we? Can we
Okay,
get a little technical? When
let's do it.
because we're working with you and we're sending you some updates and we're asking you questions for feedback, and you have been instrumental in helping us, from a coach who stands on the turf, who stands on the tee and uses our product every single day. As we are releasing these numbers, what are a couple of numbers, degrees, rotations that you would say, these are kind of my core basic, this is what and again, you and I have talked about this, but maybe for our audience, like, this is a couple of the things that I'm always looking for.
Certainly, I think it really comes from, and this is going to be my bias, from the areas of the body that I tend to look at. I tend to look at the heart of the body first as the engine. So I'm big on rotations. I would want to know pelvis rotation. So is this moving 45 degrees back, 38 degrees back? I want to know trunk rotation. Is there going to be a separation between upper and lower half, aka X factor to some degree? So rotations are going to be big for me to see how the body is working around the spine indicated by the yellow line. The next feature, metric, I should say, that I would want to know would be the amount of lateral movement. So in terms of 3D, I like to see back and forth depth, so rotation. I want to be able to see lateral motion. And so right now, what Onform has put out has been the SLY and sway tracking, which, if you haven't used that yet, pretty cool. I mean, we've probably all have drawn the lines to at some extent, but just to click that on and be able to see that is really nice. But I would want to know how much the pelvis is moving from center back and forth. And I would want to know how much the trunk is swaying and sliding back and forth. And then from there, if there could be some simple um, some simple lines in terms of swing plane and knowing how many degrees the shaft perhaps changes. If we reference these swing plane lines in the top or right hand corner, if I could understand the metric for what that change was, that gives me some nice data to track over time. Um, of course, you could expand. There's so many different parameters that you could go into when it comes to bends, torso bend and hip bend, and you could really get into the weeds. But the main ones that I'm going to use overall are going to be rotations and lateral movements to start off with most club golfers. As I get into my elite AMs, my elite juniors, and a player who's trying to play professionally, I then want to expand some of those measurements moving forward. Could be more vertical aspects, could be some flexion in the joints, flexion in knee, flexion in elbow. That could give me some information in terms of vertical components. That would be that third force outside of rotation and lateral that we'd want to know for optimal speed and delivery.
So it sounds to me that you're basing the information you're giving to the level of golfer that's in front of you. I mean, I think we all would agree. Poor Mrs. Haverkamp, right? She gets a bad rap because we all use her name. But if Mrs. Haverkamp's in front of you, you're not talking about 40 degrees pelvic rotation, trunk rotation. I need your radial and your dorsal and your flexion. You're getting basics, but then your aspiring tour pros, you're probably getting a little bit more granular. Is that a pretty good assessment?
100% accurate. The level of information that I share with the student is pertinent to their level of interest, number one, goals, number two, and their skill. You
Mm.
don't start teaching algebra to a kindergartner. You could educate them up, but they just may not be ready for that quite yet.
I still haven't taken algebra. Don't tell my wife. No, I'm teasing.
No one uses it anyways.
I know, right? All right. This is what machine learning and AI is for, though. Chat GPT will help me. Oh
That's
man.
right.
Well, this is awesome. And I know we're going to have several more of these conversations as Onform continues to grow, continues to expand, and add some data. We're so thankful for you. Thank you for walking us through kind of maybe call it 3D 101.
I love that. I love that. And I would encourage all coaches that are maybe a little hesitant to bring that into your coaching repertoire is try it on yourself first. I mean, before I allow any new features to be seen by a student, I have gone through it several times in my own swing so that I understand the workflow. It's not choppy while I've got a student in front of me saying, oh, I don't know what this means. That's the worst presentation that you can give a student. But I encourage you to explore it for yourself and then consider what sort of student might eat this information up so that they have a deeper understanding of what we want them to do. There's certainly going to be students where I don't bring this up at all, and then other students where it helps take the message across the finish line much more cleanly. But I just encourage coaches to experiment and explore with it so that you feel comfortable. It's also going to help your learning and bring new insights. I mean, some swings that I've been seeing for 2 or 3 years, having the 3D representation had a couple of light bulb moments like I didn't know that was happening. I've seen this guy for X amount of years and now I saw it from a different lens. I have a different improvement strategy I now want to implement into my next lesson. So just from a coach's perspective, you can kind of see through that different lens how you could help a student become better.
From the complicated to the bare bones. I
I
love
love
it.
it.
Allison, thank you so much again. We appreciate you. Thank you for your time. And we'll be back again.
Always a pleasure. Till next time.